Hello to all of you wonderful moms out there. Welcome back to episode 41 of the Solve for Mom podcast. I'm your host, Anokhi. The Solve for Mom podcast is a place where we help ambitious moms create the life that they want while prioritizing what matters most. 2 episodes ago, which was episode 39 last week, we explored traditional work arrangements, from full-time office work to remote positions and being a stay-at-home mom. And if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, you can find it linked in the show notes below. Well, today in part 2, we're diving into the less traditional and flexible work setups. I'm going to be sharing my experience with part-time work, contract positions, entrepreneurship, and how I've combined multiple roles like consulting and homeschooling. If you're feeling torn between career ambitions and family time, you're struggling to find the right work-life balance, or considering a transition to more flexible work arrangements, this episode is going to give you practical insights to help you make an informed decision. Whether you're thinking about scaling back your hours or exploring freelance opportunities or launching your own business, I am going to share the real freedoms and limitations that I've discovered through trying each of these setups. Ready to explore which flexible work arrangement could be your perfect fit? Let's dive in. Are you looking for a way to blend success and motherhood without losing sight of who you are? I get it. I've been there too. Hi, I'm Anokhi, a PhD researcher, business owner, and homeschooling mom of 2 boys. As your life coach, I help moms like you create a life you love at home and at work. If you're ready to stop feeling overwhelmed, overscheduled, and overlooked, and you want a clear roadmap to a balanced life, a meaningful career, and finally feeling like yourself again while still being the amazing mama that you are, you're in the right place. In this complex equation we call life, it's time to sharpen our pencils and our minds and solve for mom. Before we start, I want to make sure that you tap the follow button by subscribing to the show. It'll appear on your playlist automatically every week, and you'll save yourself a lot of time instead of hunting down the episodes. Okay, now back to the show. Are you missing or want to maintain your professional successes but worried about not being able to focus on family? Maybe you're uncertain if there's a work setup that would be better and more meaningful for you and your family. So today, I'm going to describe the part-time and more creative working mom setups. The reason it's so important to consider all of your options is to see which work arrangement strikes the best balance for maintaining professional growth while being present for your family, and that can help you achieve financial independence while having control over your schedule. In part 1, I shared a story about my entire career journey. Well, I want to hone in a little part of it. I transitioned to doing independent contract scientific consulting because my older son was approaching kindergarten and we decided to start homeschooling. I loved being present for my family, but I also wanted to have defined work goals and projects to look forward to. So this led me to explore a more flexible part-time job option. This arrangement actually taught me how work setups often need to evolve with my life's changing circumstances. So I want to talk about how you can consider other creative work options. I've been working part-time in one form or another since probably the beginning of 2018. I like it because there are so many options, and I'll be sharing some of those different setups today. But obviously, I really like working part-time because that is still what I do at the moment. I like having a foot in both worlds of the working world and being a present mom to have more time with my kids. Actually, the workload feels a lot more manageable when I work part-time than full-time. And a lot of flexible jobs are part-time, so it works with your schedule. There are plenty of options to work part-time in person or remotely. Either way, you're going to want to have manageable, defined hours and put good boundaries around when you're available for work and not. And so one of the caveats I want to put in here is that all of my part-time work has been done remotely. And so that is the lens through which I'm providing all of this information. Of course, there is a reduced salary because you're getting paid for the amount of time you work and limited to no benefits, which could affect your retirement savings. But I actually look at it the other way. I probably would have defaulted to staying at home to be with my kids full time. And by having part-time work options, it's actually a form of supplemental income that I probably wouldn't have had otherwise. There's also a lot of childcare options. Of course, there are the traditional forms where you can send them to daycare or have a nanny. And I've done lots of different things when my kids were young. But I also mentioned in part 1 that sometimes my husband and I switch back and forth between caring for our children because my husband also works at home, although he's in a full-time, more traditional job. One thing that I had to start accepting was the lost opportunities and limited advancement that part-time work gave me. I couldn't take certain projects because I wasn't willing to put the time that it would take to complete them. And I actually wasn't considered for certain positions. When I was working full-time, I was actually being groomed for one of the director positions at our company. And I was actually told that that was a strictly full-time position. And so when I chose to become a part-time worker, I was no longer eligible for that. So again, I like to flip that perspective around. Instead of seeing it as lost opportunities, I actually think that working part-time is what allowed me to take advantage of other opportunities, my big ideas and my dreams that weren't employer-based, like starting this podcast and this business, or being able to homeschool my kids, or working on my many, many passion projects that bring me so much meaning and joy in my life. Broadly speaking, in order to be successful with part-time employment, you really have to be strategic with time blocking. You do have to have a bit of a flexible mindset because sometimes you might have to take a client call or a meeting that doesn't strictly fall within your time block. And to continue to be able to contribute, you might have to accept work that's outside of those times. But I know that when you're put to the task, you're going to be super creative in how you can work. There are so many options. I have thought of things that I would never have thought of until I was put into the position where I had to come up with a new arrangement in order to be able to continue working. So having clear boundaries and also continual good communication, both at work and at home, are really, really important in order for this to be sustainable. I would recommend before any career shift, whether it's a shift in your arrangement or shifting the type of work you do, changing jobs, but specifically if you're shifting from full-time to part-time or from being a stay-at-home mom to part-time, I would suggest a clear life plan. Because having that clear life plan will allow you to be so intentional with the type of work that you do. It ensures that the work that you are now switching to aligns and brings you a lot of value. If you're going to be spending your time and your energy towards this type of work, you're taking part of your day and putting it towards this job that you want to make sure that it's going to add meaning to your life and to the world. So overall, part-time work is a really good balance for working and personal time, but it does make for a slower career progression. It does allow you to maintain your skills, though, which was one of my main goals. And now I'm going to go into different part-time arrangements, but I just want you to see, before we start talking about that in more detail, how part-time work can be an alternative path. So now I want to compare part-time work done in the day versus nighttime, because I've actually done both, and there are awesome reasons to do either one. Of course, nighttime work requires that your job is a little more flexible, that your employers are okay with you working where most of the company probably is not working at that time. The daytime work is great because it syncs with traditional work time, so you can follow a lot of the norms and whatever services are offered then you have access to. I really liked that if there was a question I had that I wanted an immediate answer to, usually if I emailed or called, I could get that answer right away. But even with daytime part-time work, you can have a regular schedule or flexible. Like when I first started part-time work, I actually would do some of my hours while my child was taking his nap. The great thing about doing your job at night is that usually there's quiet time because in my case, I try to do it when my kids are already put to bed. And so then I don't have a lot of interruptions. And it also frees up my day. Working part-time at night is how I'm able to homeschool my kids during the daytime and work 2 jobs in the evening. One other thing to consider about nighttime work is that you probably have little to no childcare costs required. Because even in daytime work, you might have to have someone watching over your kids. It's possible for you to work at home and to work part-time while your kids are in the background. I think that is a very doable thing, and I've had to do that as well. But in some cases, you may have to have a professional meeting, or you may have instances or a type of job that requires your kids to be cared for while you're working. One downside to nighttime work is that my kids are not actually seeing me as a working mom. In fact, many times they even forget that I work at night. So sometimes I feel like my kids are missing out on me being able to role model having a good work ethic. working in the evenings, depending on what hours you choose. In my case, I work in the evenings from 8 to 11:30. Well, that does often lead to some exhaustion and overwhelm the next day if I don't plan things out properly. I have a system that allows me to do this where I am not exhausted and overwhelmed. And so one of the most important things for me when I'm working part-time using the evening hours is to be very self-disciplined, not just about working, but also about planning. But some of that can also be true about part-time, daytime work because there are often interruptions. You have to go back and forth between tasks. First, you're caring for your children. Then you're logging on for work and your mind is in there. And then you have to stop because you have to pick up a kid from some other place. And so without proper planning, even daytime work can kind of fall apart. Either way, you're going to have the support of your coworkers as well as your husband, especially with nighttime work, because in the evenings when I think most couples are usually spending time together, I'm actually taking time out to work. And so there is a little bit of a husband-wife time sacrifice that we're making right now. But on the flip side of it, I am more present for my kids in the daytime. If I worked part-time during the day, I would have some missed daytime family moments. And it's also harder to be present in the daytime, having to task switch and having that pressure to be efficient and know that there's that work pending. Whereas at nighttime, I don't have to worry about even touching my work during the daytime. If I commit to just being with my family, I know that I have a good chunk of time blocked off at night where I can address all of my work. So it's actually easier to kind of let work go during the daytime and focus on family and then work in the evenings. Either way, you want to have efficient scheduling and you really want to maximize that focused work blocks that you've set aside, whether it's in the daytime or nighttime. With daytime work, you also want to structure your afternoons so that you have good quality time with the kids. When it comes to nighttime work, I've really done it the wrong way and the right way. This is what I do now. I maximize my daytime with my family and the kids in order to feel good about having to work in the evenings. I use clear communication with the family, and I set myself up for success with good planning and scheduling and all of the high-performance strategies that I would have used in a full-time position. I still apply to all of my part-time work. You have to get really good about prioritizing. I have a good wind-down nighttime routine. Because I work in the evenings, I still want to be able to feel like my day is done instead of my day just started because I have work. So I work for 3.5 hours from 8 to 11:30, and then I try to stop as much as possible when there aren't looming deadlines. So for me, that looks like turning the sauna blanket on, getting some detox time in there, and then meditating a little bit and taking a shower and going to bed. There were other things that I like to do at night, like reading. So I've taken that and shifted it to other times of the day. So with either option, you're still working on your professional development and you're able to support your family while maintaining your creative and intellectual pursuits. And both options require some alternative and flexible scheduling. Part-time work lends itself really well to work-life balance, and I really do think it is possible. Whether you work at the daytime or at night is really a matter of preference and if you're employed by someone else, what they're willing to allow. It's great to have that added income. When it comes to nighttime work, you do have to be careful about a potential burnout risk by getting exhausted or overwhelmed. Again, all of that can be mitigated with good planning. One type of part-time work is doing contract work. Now, contract work doesn't have to be part-time, but it is a good part-time option. What that means is that you're not actually hired as an employee of the company who is setting out the contract. You basically are signing a contract, and they could be short-term or long-term, and you will be the person who will address the work that's outlined in the contract. Now, it could be project-based, so you could be signing a contract to do work on one specific project, and you're going to work for the duration that the contract outlines, or it could be roles-based. So that's a lot of what I will do. So I will be a person who signs a 1-year contract, let's say, with a consulting company, and I will be a hired contract consultant who will then address work that is brought my way, and the specific kind of work and the hours I'll work and all of that and the rate at which I'll get paid are all detailed in the contract. So I've signed contracts for many different lengths of time, but pretty much all the work I do now is contract work. And so at the moment, I have 2 long-term contracts with 2 different companies. One is a for-profit and one is a nonprofit. But as a freelancer, I am not limited to those 2 places. So I am able to seek out other opportunities if I want, or if other opportunities come to me, I'm able to take them on. Sometimes these contracts have some sort of exclusivity as to you being able to or not able to work with other companies or other projects. In my case, I'm pretty much able to continue work however I want, as long as I'm not working on something that directly competes or works against a contract that I have in place. And obviously, there are also clauses to prevent you from poaching clients from these other companies. A couple of things that I like about contract work is that I have a little bit of control over the projects. I'm able to say yes or no to individual projects, and I can work with multiple clients at the same time. Also, I don't have to do a lot of marketing. Now, this may be different for different fields of work. However, once I have a long-term contract in place, I am there and available to take on whatever projects are passed on to me. I don't have to independently go out and market and find clients to work with. However, if I don't have any contracts in place, at that point, I might have to make some more effort to market myself and find more work. The way it's worked out for me so far is that I've had enough connections where when one contract completes, I either am able to renew or I am able to get referred over to another place. There are some drawbacks to consider because there is an inconsistency to the income stream when it comes to contract work. Maybe not so much while you're working on the project, but once a contract ends, there is a little bit of uncertainty as to where you might get your next project from. Of course, your benefits are all self-managed. There are also some tax implications to consider. I am not an expert in this, so I usually defer to experts and hire help. For the most part, your business expenses are your own, unless your contract explicitly states that you can be reimbursed for certain things. Now, in reality, you are dependent on others to bring you work, like I work with multiple firms, but it does feel a little bit like you're a solopreneur or a CEO because you get to say yes or no to different projects. When I'm doing contract work, I still consider myself a working mom, and I do have that sense that I'm contributing outside of my role as a mom. So I mentioned that there is some inconsistency with your income stream, and sometimes that can be a little stressful. But there's also variability in the amount of work and effort you have to put in, because sometimes work will come in bursts. And so you might have periods of total downtime and then all of a sudden intense work and deadlines. It is often a flexible job having contract work. On the other hand, when you are dealing with client deadlines, there is no budge. You have to do whatever it takes to meet those deadlines. So that is something to consider, whether you work well under that kind of pressure and whether you, your family, and your schedule can handle this sort of variability that comes with contract work. So contract work is a great way for you to have a lot of autonomy and diverse experiences. In order to be successful with contract work, you want to set clear client expectations. Sometimes you're communicating with multiple groups. Coordinating those multiple groups and getting everyone on board in terms of timelines and schedules is something that you have to be really good at because now you're not just managing your own schedule. One of the main reasons that I work independently part-time and then seek out these contract work opportunities is because I love the flexibility to choose which projects I think are impactful and that I am behind the cause for. And that's why contract work sometimes feels like you're following an entrepreneurial model without you actually being a solopreneur or businesswoman. And this is a good segue into being a home business owner. As you know, I am a podcaster and run an online business. And this is in parallel and completely unrelated to the scientific consulting that I do that's more contract work based. As a home business owner, you have full control over the work. Not just the type of work, but also the schedule related to your work. And you get to direct the direction that your company will take. Now, this podcast talks a lot about life planning and creating a meaningful life by aligning how your time and energy gets placed, that you place it with things that are the most meaningful to you. So being a home business owner is really the ultimate outcome of life planning when it comes to your career. You get to build a whole business around what you find valuable. But just like contract work, it's going to be variable income. And sometimes at the startup phase, you're not getting anything. You're actually probably spending money. But having your own business has so much growth potential. And if you can push past that startup phase, you can really find a lot of financial satisfaction out of this. Overall, it is so empowering to run a woman-owned small business, to be a CEO. And honestly, it takes a while for you to really shift your thinking into the fact that you are now a CEO. But like I said, being a CEO is such a great way to have impact and make a difference. If you're running your business out of your home, sometimes it's hard for you or others to give it the seriousness that it requires to be building a business and to be running a business. Sometimes once you formalize the business, like turn it into an LLC or something, it can feel a little more official. So just make sure that while you're trying to get work done and run your business, that because you're at home, you're not getting sucked out of your role as a businesswoman too much while you're trying to be productive. Also, others just may not even be aware of what you're trying to do and may not even take your time too seriously. So you might have to advocate for yourself a little bit. Taking care of your kids while you're trying to build a business is very different than working part-time. You want to make sure that you have blocks of time. It's very hard to build a business or to run a business and keep it successful if you're doing it in the cracks of the day. I would say that taking time to plan out your schedule, create blocks, and figure out childcare support would be really important if you really want to make some headway with your business. And I'm not saying that you can't work irregular hours or in the evenings, but there are challenges to starting up a business from your home. And so overall, it's going to require a lot of self-discipline. So in order to be successful as a home business owner, especially if you're a solopreneur, you might have to rely on things like automation and outsourcing and delegating. After you're past the startup phase and once things are really moving, you may also want to consider strategies like finding ways to create passive income or scaling up your offers so that you're not really reinventing the wheel, but you will have created something that can continually bring you income. These are the types of things you need to do to work smarter, not harder. Because as moms, we all know that our time is so limited, so you want to maximize how much you can get out of the time that you do put in. You have to be very strategic about your planning, about your workspace, about your support that you're going to lean on, and communication. So this is kind of taking all of the important considerations that I discussed with all of the other work arrangements and kind of folding it all into one here. And if this is you and you'd like to have some high performance strategies under your belt and the support and accountability that comes with creating that meaningful life, especially when it comes to your career, then please do look into my coaching program. I have a link to a free exploratory call in the show notes below. We can really discuss and flesh out all the things that you might need to maximize and optimize your work arrangement. I want to help you work towards your vision. I want to help you pin down what your vision is and help you make progress towards that vision. So overall, being a home business owner is great for entrepreneurial growth and family flexibility. You're building assets that you own. They are truly yours. You can make a difference because you are creating the solutions and the opportunities. You're adding your special uniqueness and individuality into the world, and then you're monetizing it. And that feeling is so priceless. You know that I'm a homeschooling mom, and I did want to take some time to talk about that too. Maybe that's not a traditional job, but it sure feels like a good chunk of my day goes towards a very specific endeavor, and it is a little sad that homeschooling moms get shortchanged because we're not recognized teachers necessarily in the school system, but we do work. Now, I'd like to argue that I find it super fulfilling and valuable because I am taking a direct hand in my own children's education. And in our family, we value education so much, I can't think of a more important job to do. Maybe the outside world doesn't necessarily think of homeschooling moms as having jobs, but I certainly do. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom who is looking to start homeschooling her kids, or you're a working mom in whatever arrangement that you have, and you want to see if homeschooling can also be part of your new lifestyle, I'd just like to give you some details so that you can better make that decision. Now, I'm not going to talk about the pros and cons of homeschooling as a philosophy. I'm going to talk about how being a homeschooling mom fits into that work-life balance equation. Homeschooling is a great job to have because it is a customized education that you are providing your kids. It's part of educational freedom. And one of the biggest misconceptions about homeschooling is that it deprives kids of social opportunities. But I'd have to say I couldn't disagree more. In fact, we are constantly around other people and out and about on field trips and meeting people. I actually have to make intentional time to sit at our desks and to get academic desk work done. Homeschooling is also an opportunity to create rich family time. It really does improve your relationship, your trust, and your connection with your kids. Financially, you're probably going to have to cover all of the curriculum costs and any other educational expenses. Now, this can vary depending on where you live, but for the most part, you're in charge of acquiring all the materials and paying for it. Now, you know that even though I homeschool, I also continue to work part-time. That is because of how I have arranged my schedule. Now, what I am able to do is not necessarily going to work for every single mom. If it's the case that homeschooling means that you can't also have another job on the side, then you do have to factor in that you might have some reduced earning potential. But as I said earlier, homeschooling is a job. So I often say that I have 3 jobs because I teach as a homeschooling mom, and I consult in science, and I have my own business. So internally, I feel so fulfilled as a homeschooling mom because I get to be there. I feel like the true teacher. I'm present for all of my kids' aha moments. And they do see me not just as mom, but as a teacher, somebody that they learn from. What I like about homeschooling is that I'm concurrently getting family time while we are learning, and we're just doing our daily living. So my kids get to see what I do as a mom, like every day, but then they also see me in the role as a teacher, and they watch me balancing all of these things against my business and other work. We also get to spend so much time outdoors, and so it really helps us feel grounded to who we are and the things we like to do, and just overall calms our nerves, which is a great way to spend your day. Now, I don't always try to do this, but there are times where my kids are working on an assignment independently. They don't need a lot of instruction from me, and sometimes I will take that time to pop in and get a couple of emails and other things at work done. I don't like doing that because I'm not the best with task switching. However, sometimes it's a great way to just kind of get ahead of the game on certain things. Especially when it comes to homeschooling, it's not something you want to do alone. So you're going to want to build a support network, especially of other homeschooling families, but also with family. There are times where I hand off the teaching to friends or to the grandparents who all have their own strengths and are more than happy to share their expertise and skills and teach my kids. We also get a lot of support from other homeschooling groups where we do activities together, and so not all of the work has to fall just on your shoulders. There are opportunities to share and distribute that responsibility. So homeschooling does require some energy and organization, and you have to be on top of both the educational planning and the social planning. However, I do have a very simple way that I get everything organized during the summer so that my whole year, at least educationally, is all planned out, and even partially socially. If you didn't have planning in play, yes, homeschooling will be very exhausting and very time-consuming. But because of the way I plan it, it just doesn't feel as hard as it probably could be. And I get a lot of comments from people like, how are you doing all of this? How are you homeschooling? Or I could never homeschool because that looks so hard and like so much work. I don't want to minimize the work that I do put into it, but to me, it actually feels not too hard compared to all of the other work that I do. And it certainly is a source of joy for me. So in order to be successful with homeschooling, you really want to balance the teaching part, your work life, and integrating real life because everything you do is a learning opportunity for the kids. It can be really helpful to batch tasks and having great routines in place. You're going to want to, again, have your time blocks, especially when you're trying to divide up your homeschooling time and your work time. By having buffers in place in case things change, because with homeschooling, a lot of times things will change, the plan will change, then at least you are able to move forward and it doesn't completely stall everything. So setting the plan in advance and reviewing in advance all really help so that when the time comes, you can kind of just roll it all out and hit play. Overall, I can't think of anything more impactful for my family than homeschooling my kids. It really allows for that deep family engagement. I can still keep a focus on my career, and separate that time out from the time that I spend with my family. By homeschooling my kids, I am also building a new skill for myself, which is teaching. And I am having a direct impact on my child's education. I'm able to foster an expanded community for my kids to lean on and learn from, and we are constantly coming up with creative and innovative ways of learning together. There is one more setup that I want to include because I think it often gets overlooked, and that's an internship. In part 1 of this series, I talked about being an intern, and of course that was before I became a mom, and it was when I was right out of grad school. However, I have learned a lot about how to be an intern as a mom. And so I just wanted to combine my personal internship experiences with new things that I've learned about being an intern as a mom. And so if you hadn't considered internship as an option, I did want to share a little more information about it. Internships are a great opportunity for you to build skills and to create a potential for future work. It is basically a hands-on learning opportunity. And so I wanted to share some of the differences about being an intern as a mom that are different than when I was an intern before I became a mom. Some people think of internships as sort of a free apprenticeship where you do the work and you're getting free education and experience. But it doesn't always have to be free. There are definitely paid opportunities to be an intern. It's not uncommon in sort of the mom world where interns can trade skills. Most people don't do internships as a way to get extra money. The focus of an internship is usually to gain hands-on experience. If that is the primary focus, and let's say another mom is taking you on as an intern, if they don't necessarily have the funds to compensate you financially, think about something that you need help with. Maybe you need somebody to watch your kids for a while, or maybe you have a home improvement project, or you want somebody to take over your social media content. Well, you could trade your time as an intern for their skills to help you in these areas. Overall, an internship is a great way to get your feet wet before you jump into a new career or a business. So I think for moms who are thinking of a career shift, it can be a high-risk change. An internship is a very gentle way of checking things out before you fully commit. So as I mentioned before, it's probably going to be minimal payment, or you might not even get paid for your internship. But most people look at it as an investment in a future career. An internship can be very empowering because you're deciding to do something about your future for yourself. If you have lost sight of yourself in terms of your identity, having an internship has all the same benefits as being a working mom. Depending on the type of internship you have, you may or may not need childcare. Usually, some sort of flexible family help could pretty much suffice. And if your internship is with another mom, like you're helping another mom, they're usually quite understanding. And so it's not an issue if, let's say, your kids are in the background of calls and videos and such. While internships can be time intensive, it's usually temporary in nature. So to be successful with an internship, you want to figure out how you're going to juggle all of your tasks. And so depending on the nature of your internship, it might be possible that you're able to do all of the work required at specific windows of time, such as when your baby is napping, or at night, or in other sort of cracks of the day. This type of work setup leans more heavily towards short-term help and childcare. And so, of course, you're going to have to be quite strategic about managing your time. Overall, internships are great for career development. That is the main purpose of them. But it does come at a cost of some short-term finances because they're not always associated with a stipend. Still, internships can be such a valuable experience to help you learn and grow while being a mom. And internships really are an important part of the career transitioning experience. In my case, I did an internship because I didn't want to have to go back and get all of the formal education required for transitioning into my career. And so an internship was a really great option because I was getting paid and it was a crash course in everything that I was planning to do later anyways. And another way that internships can make a difference in your life is if you're not necessarily transitioning your career, but you want to bring in a fresh perspective or be more interdisciplinary in your skill set and bring that to your current foundation. Okay, this was a long episode and it's time to wrap up now. Every mom's path is unique. So the best arrangement is the one that supports both your professional ambitions and your family's well-being. So just keep adjusting until you find what works for you. But today I shared part 2 of our deep dive into flexible work arrangements for moms. Part 1 covered the traditional arrangements, and so don't forget to catch up there if you missed it. Today, we explored the less traditional but potentially more rewarding work setups that modern moms have been embracing. Part-time work offers moms the flexibility to maintain professional growth while having more time with family. And while it may come with some reduced income and benefits, the ability to create clear boundaries and strategic time blocks makes it really viable as an option for so many moms who are seeking work-life balance. Now, part-time work can be at night or at day, so nighttime work can come with some special considerations. This is a great option for moms who are seeking supplemental income with minimal childcare costs. The success of nighttime work depends on really good planning and energy management to avoid burnout. I also talked about contract work. That offers autonomy and some control over which projects you take, though the income can be variable and inconsistent. The key, though, is maintaining a professional network so that you can reach out for continued contracts and to set clear boundaries. And I think being a home business owner offers the maximum control and alignment with your personal passions and your vision. It requires strategic planning and automation for success so that you can balance your family life as well. Being a homeschooling mom is one way to combine deep family engagement with educational freedom, though it also requires excellent organization and good support systems. And the final thing I talked about was having an internship as a mom. This, I think, is an innovative way to transition your career or to build new skills while maintaining that family flexibility. So to combine part 1 and part 2, your work arrangement should evolve with the different seasons of your life. The key to successful, flexible work is having a clear life plan that aligns with your values and your vision. So remember to assess what your needs are, what available support you have, and your career goals before you choose a flexible work arrangement. And if you found value in this episode that was just jam-packed with flexible work arrangement options, you're going to love my free Solve for Mom Insiders newsletter. It's packed with practical tips for balancing work and family time, time management strategies, and exclusive resources you won't find anywhere else. Plus, you'll get a behind-the-scenes look at how I manage my own flexible work life. It arrives in your inbox just twice a month, and it's the perfect way to continue your journey towards finding your ideal work-life balance. So make sure to find the sign-up link in the show notes. Keep crafting a meaningful, authentic life, and don't forget, I'm going to catch you on Friday for a mini episode. I hope today's episode will help you create time and freedom to pursue something you love to do. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe and tell other ambitious mamas about it. Who knows, you might even make a new friend by sharing a tip. It's all free. By the way, it would be amazing to hear what you think about the show when you leave a review. After all, my passion is to make this a great experience for you. Thank you for making my show a part of your day. I'll see you next week for another episode of the Solve for Mom podcast with Anokhi Kapasi.